Let's go, I'm a bulldog. So Georgia, who I'm picking.
What's up, guys? I'm going to try one of these days to recreate Cortez's little yell in the beginning of that same song. Yeah, something like that. I'm going to workshop it. What we don't need to workshop right now is Georgia football recruiting. SEC Media Days took center stage for the Dogs earlier this week on Tuesday. Now, recruiting, especially for this week, guys, takes center stage for Georgia and the 2025 class. We're here live. We're here tonight on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger, inside the world-famous DawgNation.com studios. Kind of a little bit of a chill studio this week with all the action from Cody and Kaylee and Mike and Connor out in Dallas. But the Before the Hedges show must go on. Let me tell you about our show tonight. Number one, we're going to lead our show with a preview of a big four-star Georgia recruit. Cortez Smith is making his college decision. The Parkview High standout will make that decision on Saturday. I believe it will take place around 4:30 p.m. That is something Georgia Tech, Miami, South Carolina to pay a whole lot of attention to. Next, we've got a really cool look, I think, at one of the recent commitment ceremonies. And listen, I've seen or been around, 30 times 10 now, about 300 of these, maybe 250 of these. This one was unique. This one was different. It was the decision over the weekend by Rashad Johnson out of South Sumter High School, Bushnell, Florida. We're going to show the video on that just in case you guys didn't get a chance to see it. We're also going to talk about what everybody's talking about right now in the college football realm. If they're not doing a Media Days podium turn, they are playing EA Sports College Football 2025. Is it really a big deal for coaches, administrators, players, recruits, current players? Definitely so. We'll get a good look at that. We had a chance to play that game early this week. It's part of a DawgNation review of the game. Also, what I feel is something, there's guys in this class that each and every year stand out, or guys that I feel like aren't getting the juice, that they should normally get. And that's what the feeling I get now with hashtag Down South Georgia boy, Todd Robinson of Valdosta. Now, Todd, guys, is going to be a defensive back, probably will start out as a versatile jack-of-all-trades defensive back for Georgia. But he really had no film playing that position, and he needed two official visits, just Alabama and Georgia, to make his decision. There's also a rankings boost that Todd Robinson has got recently as more and more people find out about this very talented athlete from Valdosta who makes his bread on Friday nights, makes his living on Friday nights playing quarterback. That is what we're looking like tonight in this week's show. And lest we forget, I started the show by saying things are very busy this week because check this, DawgNation. We're looking at a potential first. Georgia is going to be at least a hat on the table for not one, not two, not three, but four recruiting decisions, four commitment decisions on Saturday, including that one we just teased from Cortez Smith. Will Georgia get them all? No, but we'll dive into that, what to look for on the radar in the week to 10 days to 2 weeks to come here for Georgia football recruiting. So that's our show. Let's strap in and let's get going, and let's start talking about Cortez Smith. Now, this guy's top 150, top 200 overall prospect. Guys, I will never forget the first time I saw Cortez Smith playing. We were doing a TV game for Peachtree TV. Brandon was there. I believe Kaylee was there when she was not in her role at DawgNation yet. But we were watching Marietta play Parkview. And I was really struck by a young man that was playing for Parkview. And I pointed him out to the coach. And I was like, at that time, Parkview had Coach Godfrey, now the head coach at North Gwinnett. And I said, tell me about that kid. He looks different. The way he moved, he just looked different. And Coach Godfrey told me that, yeah, that's our freshman. His name is Cortez Smith. He is 13 years old, and we're starting him tonight in Class 7A GHSA football. And I'm going to tell you, Cortez lived up to the hype. Coach Godfrey and the Parkview staff, they really wasn't very nervous about starting a guy like Cortez Smith. Folks, Cortez will turn 17 this October. He is a special prospect down to Georgia Tech, Miami, South Carolina, and Georgia. Folks, when he gets to some college, whether it's Atlanta, Coral Gables, Columbia, or Athens, he will enroll early, and he will go through his entire first year on campus and even click off 2 or 3 months of the season to get to October before he turns 18 years of age. That is a prospect with a lot of potential. Let me let you guys hear from him right now, previewing Saturday's big decision between that final group of 4. Cortez Smith, you are 3 days out from your decision today. Is it any way as stressful as it was 13 years old starting for Parkview on the offensive line at center?
Definitely way less stressful. Like coming in, like I know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, and I just got to execute.
I think people will be struck when they see you're 6'3 plus, 315 pounds, and you're still 17 years old. I mean, 16 years old, right?
Yeah.
16 years old. You'll be 17 this fall. Like, do you feel like you have a lot of potential and room to grow because you're still relatively very young for your age?
Yeah, I feel like I definitely got a lot of room to grow, but I don't think people should think like I'm just not going to be good enough if I'm just young, but I'm definitely going to work for it.
Let me see. You're a 4-year starter. You started at 13 in Class 7A. You have all the offers you probably could ever want. You're a state champion in one track sport. You're a runner-up in the other. Which one of those accomplishments do you feel, are you the proudest of?
Really, well, I'll say one of my proudest moments was like going in as freshman, like, and I know the snaps were bad, not the greatest, but I did pretty decent to say I just started snapping like a week ago. And of course, like, I think the best this year was like probably the runner-up because I came in second to lowest, surprised everybody, big throw, got second, we lost on the last throw. I mean,
well, you came from next to last, and then you got second out of it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was like the biggest jump out of the whole decade or something like that.
Describe the way you try to play football. When people watch you play, how is that?
I try to play explosive. Like, everything I do, I try to make, like, explosive, like, if it's twitch, like, powerful, everything just needs to be explosive, like, nothing slow, if that makes sense.
What will your decision on Sunday come down to?
It comes down to how they treat me and how they're going to make me a better person in the community they're going to have behind me.
Let's walk through your finalists. Let's start with Georgia Tech. Why do you feel strongly about Georgia Tech to make them in your final group?
I mean, Georgia Tech is a great program. They got the city, of course, and the actual tech part with a lot of upsides on the after football. And, of course, Coach Wade, Coach Jeep, like, they're building a great program there with their line. And I see a lot of good stuff about them in the future.
How about Georgia? How do you feel about the other home state school?
I mean, just homegrown, great school. A little old school with the tradition and everything, but it's a big community. And they got, of course, a good academic program with a lot of support.
Miami, the Hurricanes. I'm sure Coral Gables was beautiful when you went down and saw it.
I mean, beautiful scenery. I mean, coaches, Coach Cristobal, Coach Mirabal, like, they're great coaches. They're going to make sure everybody's, like, coached the same. They're making sure details in them coaching room. And, like, I mean, Miami, of course, is a private school, smart, so it's a beach. It's great.
How about South Carolina? Why are they in your mix here?
Coach Cheesy, Coach Beamer, like, they're building something actually awesome there. Like, really, they're building it from the ground up. They came in, did some things, got it going, got it rocking.
What did the decision for you ultimately come down to?
Well, for me, it came down to, like, how they can make me the best person and football player possible. Like, and, like, how I'll feel being there. Of course, like, the enjoyment of being in the college.
There you have it, guys. Cortez Smith. Some things to know about Cortez, besides him being a 4-year starter and having basically just about every offer in the country. Georgia, other schools kind of see him as a combo interior offensive lineman center. He'll play center, guard, and tackle depending on matchups this year for Parkview High School. An accomplished athlete. He was also the state champion this year in Georgia in the shot put, and then he was runner-up in the discus. Very impressive there. Lots of accomplishments there for Cortez Smith. Trains very, very hard to be the best he can be, and that decision will come down on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Cortez Smith, you go around Parkview High School, and they talk about, now, folks, there's been a lot of great offensive linemen. The Stinchcomb brothers at Parkview, Zeb McKenzie, the list can go on and on. I feel like Cortez belongs in that discussion of the all-time best offensive lineman in Parkview High School history. That is a very proud and tradition-enriched program, started up basically by Cecil Flo. I hear Cecil Flo still kind of helps out with the offensive line there at Parkview as well. So very intriguing, finally, that decision. Cortez is one of those guys that had his decision date kind of squirreled away back in May, and he has kept his ground, I guess, as a good center has done. He has held his ground. He will make his decision on July the 20th. So DawgNation will be watching and waiting to see what Cortez Smith tries to do there as Georgia tries to add more to their recruiting class in the class of 2025. That's Big Five time. That was number one. Let's move to number two here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. And like we said, like we teased earlier in the show, it is a big Saturday potential for Georgia football recruiting. Not only is Cortez Smith making his decision, there are potentially 4 decisions that Georgia will be involved in. They are involved in for Saturday, July the 20th. Let's take a look at what's going on right there. This is what I call maybe the Alanis Morissette, the Marvin Gaye segment here of Before the Hedges. What's going on with Georgia? Look at July the 20th, folks. Been doing this a long time. Aside from an old school signing day, that's the most potentially big announcement moments there for Georgia football recruiting under Kirby Smart. To see potentially 4, folks. It could have been 5 with Christian Garrett making his decision earlier this year. But starting out there, Bryce Davis. To me, guys, that has always felt like Georgia. Clemson for that one. He is a tremendous edge talent. He gives you some of the vibes that you've seen out of some of the best Georgia type outside edge guys like Azeez Ojulari, Nolan Smith, guys like that. A very strong all-around talent out of North Carolina. Christian Gass, Eastside High. That is the school which sent Eric Stokes Jr. to Georgia. There's a little bit of USC in here, just a little bit. But my information leads me to believe it's Georgia or Tennessee. I don't think that decision is finalized yet. I don't think it's been made yet. Christian Gass, he was our preview subject on last week's Before the Hedges. Love how his teammates rally around him, get around him. His high school coaches have basically told me that the young man doesn't even get tardies. That's how exemplary an ambassador for Eastside High Eagles football Christian Gass has been and will continue to be for those Eagles. Christian has only been playing varsity football for 2 seasons. This fall will basically be his second year of varsity football and only his second year as a linebacker. I think Georgia has worked very hard to put itself in a strong position there for Christian Gass. But again, it's kind of funny how we kind of set up this year about how we thought this recruiting class would come down to a lot of Georgia Clemson battles. Well, Clemson hasn't really been holding up its end of the tail of the tape there, but you're seeing a lot of Tennessee with a lot of these top targets as well. Tennessee, they just picked up the commitment from Travis Smith Jr. last week on last Saturday at Westlake High, in Atlanta, Georgia. So next name to look at there, it's a receiver. Some of the services have Derek Meadows rated as a 5-star. He's a consensus 4-star on the 24/7 Sports Composite and also the On3 industry ranking. Bama, Georgia, LSU, Michigan, and Notre Dame. Really, you've heard the most here late about Notre Dame and LSU. There are some recruitments here. There are some ceremonies here where we kind of collectively roll our eyes here around Before the Hedges and DawgNation.com about decisions being school X over Georgia. Is Georgia really in this thing? I think Georgia gave Derek Meadows a little bit to think about, but I'll be totally transparent with you guys. We've known each other a long time here now on Wednesday nights on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. I would be pretty much stunned if Georgia becomes the name, or if Georgia is even the third place bronze medalist here in this decision right here. We went up and down, chopping up Cortez Smith, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Miami, or South Carolina. Cortez is about 6'3.5", about 315, 320. I saw him out at practice this week. He's really kind of bulked up, but at the same time rearranged the weight, putting a lot of good weight in different places on his body. That's the fourth pack for July the 20th. What's going on for later this month? Now, there's some other decisions. I think Lagonza Hayward, that's a safety that Georgia was in there for a little bit. I don't think that's worth bringing up here on this list, but you got two luminaries that stand out here on the offensive line. First of those is four-star offensive tackle Juan Gaston Jr. Juan Gaston Jr., Georgia Tech basketball legacy. He's going to make his decision on August the 2nd. That is a move up from when he was going to make his decision around September or October of this fall during the season. Georgia, Oregon, South Carolina, and Tennessee. See that again? Running thread here. Georgia and Tennessee are in the ring there. That's a prospect that Georgia has prioritized for a very long time. Juan goes about 6'7" and about 350 pounds right now. And then finally, you're going to see five-star David Sanders Jr. The dead period will open up for a few days later this month. And David Sanders has said, the family of David Sanders has said, that they're going to potentially visit one or two more schools just to get a final grasp of things before his decision. That decision is coming August the 17th. David has told me he's going to go on a retreat with his team where they have to put their cell phones in the bag, and then he will make that decision with a lot of clarity, a lot of mental peace, really not a lot on his mind, and he will do that in the midst of a team kind of retreat for Providence Day out of Charlotte. Ohio State, Tennessee, Nebraska, Georgia. Nebraska is really the wild card here. That was a school that got in there instead of Clemson, instead of maybe other schools he went to go see, like South Carolina, for instance. But David Sanders, the number one offensive tackle in the country. You hear a lot of Ohio State and Tennessee there with that decision right there. But that's kind of what's going on, what we see coming down the tracks with some big decisions. Remember, the recruiting calendar is kind of flipped now, where these big-time programs like the University of Georgia, they want to see most of the hay in the barn. They want to do most of the recruiting. They want to do most of the hosting. They want to do most of the committing and the decision finality. They want that to come in the month of July, so then everybody can coach football and worry about winning big games in August, September, October. There are only two really big major holdovers that will go the distance, and we'll talk about those guys during our top target section. But guys, as we mentioned, see that big sign over my shoulder? Kroger, they have A-plus savings on all your school supplies. Stock up on school supplies. Under $3 and up to 30% savings on your back-to-school gear. Visit your local Kroger or go to Kroger.com today to start saving and watch those low prices and watch those savings and those digital coupons. Watch them add up and stack up like cordwood, kind of like Georgia's commitment list so far in the month of June and July. Go to it, guys. Get your Kroger on, have some fun. We are so very thankful to Kroger for their longtime partnership here with DawgNation and also Before the Hedges on Wednesday nights as well. Guys, that's number 3. That's number 2. Coming down for number 3 on the Big 5 here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. I'm going to show you something, guys. And we've got, what do they say in TV land? Let's go to the tape. Let's go to the film. I've been to many a commitment ceremony. I've covered them. I've written about them a lot for DawgNation. I want you to check out 4-star defensive back Rashad Tom Johnson, his commitment reveal here. Now, this was at a local church. If you saw the ceremony on IG, they had to ask the pastor if they could turn up a little bit, kind of like I sometimes have to ask Jay Black and Kaylee Mansell. If I can turn up a little bit here on Before the Hedges, but guys, this was the start of the ceremony. You see Rashad Johnson. These are some social media clips. Forget all the pleasantries. Forget all the, hey, we're going to have some small talk. We're going to have some appetizers. No, he just dove right in. Look how he did it. You had the white smoke. You had him coming through the tunnel. His family, his mother, they're all decked out in UGA gear. And there he was, man. Different kind of ceremony. So he told the world, I'm going to be a dog. And then he sat down and he said his speech. He then started signing autographs. But you talk about a recruit that flipped the script on every recruiting ceremony. Most recruiting ceremonies we've seen, Rashad Johnson certainly takes the cake there. They call him Tom Tom. I wrote about him in detail on DawgNation. This is a player that's work ethic here will really allow him to carve a place during his time in Athens. I know you see the flashy gold. You see the drip here, as the young folks like to call it. You see all that. But I've been told by multiple sources that Rashad Johnson is a worker. Rashad Johnson is a guy that his head coach will be driving by the stadium on Friday nights at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and he will see Rashad Johnson out there working. This is a young man that just outworks people. He didn't have an offer from Georgia until he went and camped for Georgia, and he got his offer because one of the things I was told is Georgia had a slow time on him from his freshman year when Rashad Johnson was at the All-American Combine out in San Antonio, and there was a slow time on him. And then he came to Georgia. He worked out. He camped. He got the offer, and he ran somewhere, I've been told, in the high 4.4s, low 4.5s there for Rashad Johnson. I'm going to stress work ethic. I'm going to stress length, ball skills. He comes from the same high school that sent longtime, all-time great Florida Gator Keanu Neal to Florida. His work ethic kind of stacks up with that guy right there. But Rashad Johnson, he camped at Georgia. He got an offer on June the 3rd. He took a visit to Georgia on July the 14th. Georgia beat out Louisville, Penn State, and Texas A&M here for Rashad Tom Tom Johnson. And I'm going to say props to the 2025 recruiting class so far. Did you see all those images there of Rashad right there? But you've got now the Mason Short moment, the Georgia on my mind moment, and you've got Rashad Johnson's reveal right there. And I got to say, 2025, this class of dogs is up in the creativity. They're kind of going outside the box, and they're giving us – we've seen some animals. We've seen some dogs. We've seen a lot of that so far. So very big deal, very big things there for Rashad Johnson. I'm going to stress you guys. A lot of folks, a lot of readers have reached out to me and said, hey, okay, Jeff, it's another mid 4-star type guy. Folks, these are the type of recruitments. I want you to think of guys like Eric Stokes. I want you to think of guys like Javon Bullard especially. I want you to think of guys like that are a little bit off the beaten path. And I did my homework on Rashad Johnson last week. I talked to a couple coaches in the area that know Rashad Johnson and have seen him play. And here's a parallel point. Rashad Johnson plays in a neck of the woods, kind of just outside 50 miles or so, 60 miles or so, above Tampa and to the west of Orlando. And that's kind of the same area where 5-star cornerback DJ Pickett, who's set to make his decision this weekend, I believe, this week as well. They say not a whole lot of difference between DJ Pickett, the 5-star, the number 2 or 3 corner, and a top 10 prospect overall, compared to Rashad Johnson's game, especially when it comes into the things that win football games and how hard they are to deal with and to stop teams on Friday nights. Folks, straight from the football coaches there, straight from the guys that have seen these guys, have game planned against those guys, I got that kind of endorsement about what Rashad Johnson could be in Athens. That's number 3. Number 4, guys, you're going to laugh at me. You're going to laugh at me. And especially a lot of these long time Before the Hedges folks that don't know what I'm talking about or don't know how big a deal it was when EA Sports College Football 25 dropped. Let me tell you some stories. First of all, a great friend of the show, great friend of DawgNation, Jamari Salyer, he tweeted out something recently this week. He has one of those new health activity trackers where it monitors your sleep, your recovery, all your body vitals, your blood oxygen or whatever. But he said his health tracker, we're not giving away any free plugs, just like what the man Brandon Adams always says here. But he said that sleep tracker was barking at him the next day because he didn't get enough sleep. He stayed up all night playing it. There was one recruit, guys, who told me, and this is a guy that I feel will eventually become a Georgia Bulldog. He told me he's like, listen, I don't want to play with the guy everybody else plays with. I don't want to play with the big power team. So what he did is he took Nebraska. He ran a 3-3-5 defense with the Michigan offense, and he took Nebraska, and he's trying to build his dynasty with Nebraska, and he's having a great time. He is enjoying playing with Nebraska. He says Dylan Raiola can really sling it around. He can really make the plays for him in terms of that Michigan offense right there. But, hey, don't listen to all those stories. Let's take a look at this one here from Coach Uzo Duribe. Coach Chid is what he's called around college football. And this is him. He tweeted out. He said, drop them PSN gamer tags. He's not taking no L's. I'm going to tell you, folks, there is recruiting happening right now between coaches and players right now about this football game while they're playing NCAA. It's not NCAA anymore. It's just EA College Football 2025. Here's some clips right here. You've got a lot in here. What do you have in this game? You've got the black jerseys, but that's it. You don't have the white jerseys. You don't have the red helmets. You have the red helmets. You don't have the red pants. Look at that representation, the digital recreation there of Sanford. You see that's that white smoke. You see the guys coming out of the tunnel. The actual dogs are in the game. You saw Carson Beck burst through the banner right there. Look at that view as Georgia's team assembles and meanders its way through the middle of the field, and the Redcoats on the way to the home sideline there. Now, they don't have the spike squad. They don't have when Georgia gets an interception. They do have UGA, but when Georgia gets an interception, they don't have a turnover. They don't have the takeaway turnover pads that's famous in Athens. They don't have light-up Krypton with the cell phones. But this game really gets a lot of the best things right, especially when you're playing the game and you see a third down stop come up in Athens. You can hear the Redcoats playing choker for third down stops when they want the crowd to rally up as the defense hunkers down and everybody tries to make it impossible for what's going on there. Carson Beck is a very great football player for this game. I've played several games with my son. One thing to think about here, Carson's great, probably the best quarterback Georgia's ever had in a video game. But you really, guys like Trevor Etienne and Michael Williams Jr., those guys really stand out. Here you see Georgia and Florida. They're playing in the war for the oar. That's represented in the game. I like that. And then when Georgia plays Florida in Jacksonville on the banks of the St. Johns River, you see the field split in half right there. That was a very good thing. And I want to tell you, folks, every recruit I bump into these days, they're talking about the game. I'm going to conduct interviews with recruits in the future, the very near future, playing them on the game. I think you'll get some of the better stuff there all together right there. And those are those lousy, stinking, you know what Brandon says all the time. That's a good look there. Number 4 in our Before the Hedges. Right there, put your 4 fingers up for number 4 in Before the Hedges. If you hadn't played it since many moons ago, I tell you, I played it. This is what I wrote on DawgNation. It feels like you're hanging out with an old friend again, maybe a friend you haven't seen in a lot of years, maybe a friend that you haven't seen since college. It is a fun experience. And really, guys, what it has always been is a stopgap with everybody who can't wait until fall and can't wait until the toe meets leather on Dooley Field and in Sanford Stadium. If you're counting the days until August 31st in the Benz when the Dogs get to take on the Clemson Tigers, this will help you get through it. Now, I'm going to tell you there's probably a lot of children that are upset because their dad is taking over their PS5 or is taking over their Xbox. There's probably also a lot of wives upset because nobody gets to watch their show anymore and binge watch their show because you got a lot of enthusiasts, I love that word, enthusiasts for EA Sports' new college football game, binge playing college football 2025. So you've played it so far, drop gamer tags. Let me know what you like about the game. Let me know what you enjoy. If you've been playing it, and I know you guys have been playing it, let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Number 5 on Before the Hedges, we've got another great package. I'm going to set this up by saying I think Todd Robinson is one of the most low-key, underrated, slept-on recruits in the Georgia 2025 class. 24/7 Sports just goosed his rating. They bumped him up, or he's now a top 200 overall prospect. I think he's number 190-ish or so right there. He will likely be playing the star position at Georgia. Georgia camped him. They had to have him. They made a priority. You see these other safeties going elsewhere in the class, other DBs. Georgia really wanted Todd Robinson, and I think this feature here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger, is going to show you why.
What's the reason why you play football, man? What's your why?
My why, I've always been playing football since I was little, so it's something I grew up doing, loving. And it's an opportunity to get my family in a better place, get my family better opportunities, and even for myself, it's a better opportunity.
5'11", 195, is that about what you are, height and weight?
Yep.
If you were a defensive coordinator in college football, where would you play you? Like, where do you think is your best position?
Star.
Star? Why is that such a great fit?
It's because I'm physical. I can be in the box, and I feel like I'm physical. I can get in the run game, and I can cover also.
So Georgia showed you film of like Javon Bullard and Tyke Smith and said, do this, can you do that? And that worked for you?
Yes.
Seems like a lot of guys are committing to Georgia now and just shutting the whole thing down. Are you shut down, or are you still going to take other visits?
I'm shut down.
Wow. Where did you get to that point, man? You didn't really have – you saw Alabama, right? And then you saw Georgia.
Yep. Yeah, they were my only two, but it's just the vibe at Georgia is different. It felt like home when I first got there. It's the place I wanted to be. It's just hanging around the coaches, getting to know, talking to the coaches, even hanging with some of the players is just the place to be.
Now, does Georgia's plan for you involve anything in the return game, maybe dabbling at receiver, or like what do they talk to you about?
Yeah, they talk to me about just trying to get me the ball in whatever way they can. So, yeah.
Are you cool with just being a star, though? If that's all you are as a star, are you cool with that, or just wait and see?
I'm cool with that, but hey, if the opportunity to get the ball is an option, I'll do that too.
Who was your host on your official? Like, did you go into your official thinking you might make the move, or was that all spontaneous?
Well, it was already like a thought in my mind that I might go there, but just after the visit and talking with the players and the coaches, that's when I was like, this is the place to be.
Who was your primary recruiter?
Coach Crawford.
Coach Crawford? What did he do that was able to put a picture in your mind of how you could succeed at Georgia? What did he do well here?
First thing that he did was trusting me by offering me, moving from another school there and then bringing my name up to the board and having them offer me. That's the biggest thing. But him just telling me that he think I see that he believe I'm a dog. He believe I can play any position is the main thing.
When you look at your film, what do you think is your best play on your tape?
My best play on my tape is probably against, I say Carrollton. I ran like a 70-yard or 80-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Was that a quarterback?
Yep.
Are you still going to be the quarterback this year, or are you going to move around a lot?
I'm going to be the quarterback this year. It's kind of a plan to try to get me on defense a little bit, but you never know.
Wow. How did you show Georgia, without a lot of film at DB, that you could be their next great star? How did you do that?
It was already that they believed I was athlete and I could play there, but I went to their camp and worked DB, so they evaluated the film and they thought I fit good.
Can you tell me the story of how you committed to Georgia? Like, who did you tell first? When did you tell Kirby, and what were their reactions?
The first person I told was probably my dad and my head coach, my high school head coach. Then I told Coach Crawford, and then on the visit, during the meeting, I told Coach Smart.
You told him in your exit interview coming out of your official? Is that when you told him?
Yes, sir.
So you basically silently committed within the visit and waited like a day or two to release it?
Yep.
What was Kirby's reaction?
Well, he was happy. He was glad that I decided to make that decision to come be a dog.
Todd Robinson made that decision to come be a dog. I'm going to tell you, folks, we will stress this. There are some truisms and truths where we will stand on the table and we will pound it for Georgia football recruiting. And when there is a South Georgia football player that wants to be in Athens, that shows that much of ability on the offensive side of the ball and comes to play defense for Kirby Smart in Athens, you better watch out, folks, because that stuff is going to be real. Shelton Felton, football coach, a head coach at Valdosta High, great, wonderfully, amazingly tradition-rich Valdosta High now. Shelton coached Coy Walker in high school. Shelton was on Jeremy Pruitt's staff, I believe, for just a little bit at Tennessee. He also coached at UTC Chattanooga, I believe. Shelton is one of those coaches I really trust when it comes to football, and he can just say, hey, Jeff, this is another one of those dudes. I'm like, all right, Shelton, I know what that means. It means hard-nosed. It means tenacious. It means a Georgia Bulldog-type football, South Georgia dog-type football. You saw that picture there in Todd Robinson's interview when they're in that G4 mock-up simulation set there. He's hanging with Gabe Harris, another guy that Shelton Felton coached and helped really turn his career around when he moved to Valdosta in the span of a few months. He put Todd Robinson in that category with those playmakers, with those impact guys. Shelton Felton definitely knows what a Georgia Bulldog is. Gabe Harris, Todd Robinson, Quay Walker, among others. And says Georgia fans are going to love him. I love the fact that he saw Alabama first and then Georgia, and that was it. He got Georgia, camped at Georgia, became a quick priority. Georgia knew what he wanted, what they wanted to kind of be that next star at Star. And you heard how kind of just down to earth and how kind of chill Todd Robinson is. I'm telling you, much better football player than what the ranking services say, and I don't mind saying that. I don't mind, hey, folks, keep those receipts. Don't mind you do that at all. Todd Robinson, I feel, in my best opinion, will be one heck of a football player in Athens, and I think that's one player in the class that I wanted you to hear from, especially this summer, and I want you to remember the name Todd Robinson because I think he will be a great DGD in Athens. Guys, that's your Big Five. It is SEC Media Days time, and that means, you know what? Let me see if I can give you guys we talked to the Question of the Week department. We said, you know what? We have a special request this week. We want to have a question dripping in crystal ballishness. We wanted to have a question that captures that SEC Media Days flavor and what's hit you in the mouth like some of that great Texas barbecue. We think we've done that this week, and it makes us put our thinking caps on. The question this week is, who do you think will represent Georgia at SEC Media Days next year? Ooh, think about that one for a second. Because a lot of guys that would be great potential Media Days guys, folks, Malachi Starks, Michael Williams, those guys are going to be umpteen gobs of millionaires by then. So I had to think about this for a second. I had to look really hard at the 2023 recruiting class because most of those will be juniors, key leaders, key pieces of the Georgia team. It's going to be probably too early for Georgia's 5 stars in the 2024 class, guys like Ellis Robinson, KJ Bolden, Joseph Jonah-Ajonye, Justin Williams. But I also thought of one name. Here's one first name that comes to my mind. That is, I believe he will be back for his senior season. I believe he is one of the core leaders. Definitely has to be one of the best players on the Georgia football team. I can see Georgia taking Jalen Walker to Media Days next year. I can see Georgia taking, if it's not Jalen Walker at linebacker, I could see it being a guy like C.J. Allen, who I think will make great strides this year in his second season in Athens is kind of a clear starting option for the Dogs. I think the Dogs have really 3 or 4 guys that could start at inside linebacker right now that could make the All-SEC team. That's Shmal Munden Jr., that's Raylan Wilson, and that's C.J. Allen as well. Throw in Jalen Walker there as well. Maybe that number expands to 4, but Jalen plays a little bit all over the place. I also like the name Monroe Freeling. I like him as a guy that will make another step, will play a little bit more this year, and next year will be his junior season, and he'll be ready to rock. And I think he will be a first-round pick type talent. Another name I can see is the kicker, Peyton Woodring, who is going to keep getting better and better, and I think he has the potential to be one of the all-time great Georgia kickers. I really think his future looks great. I think he'll make a lot of big kicks in his sophomore years. Other guys I can see Branson Robinson perhaps. I can see Roderick Robinson perhaps. Everybody's going to go, Jeff, you're going to make a decision on the quarterback? Well, no. I think we need to see what Jaden Rashada will be through fall practice and through fall camp in Athens to determine if he has the characteristics of a future Georgia guy quarterback. Because the quarterback at Georgia, look at it. Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett, Jake Fromm, got to be a Georgia-type guy to really hold on that position. If you were to tell me that Gunnar Stockton wins the job, then I would think he would also be a very strong candidate because he's been around Athens so long to be the next guy Georgia would potentially bring to SEC Media Days. I believe that's back in Atlanta. I do say that knowing full well that Gunnar is a super mature kid. I know he hates doing the media. He hates interviews, but I think if he is representing Georgia as the quarterback of the 2025 Georgia Bulldogs, I think he will be great at it if that's the way the football world works out there as well. Guys, that's my take on the SEC Media Days question for 2025. I had to put a little thought into it there. A lot of key pieces, like a guy like Dylan Bell, for instance, I think he would be a great candidate as well. I just think Dylan might have the type of year where he decides to go play in the NFL as well, or where he earns the right to go play in the NFL as well. So Trevor Etienne and other names like that. So that's what I thought about for that question. I'd love to hear your takes as well on that one here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Let's take a look at the things you see each and every week here on a Before the Hedges program. Let's start out with the class breakdown. And we added another name. The list grows to 20. I get this question almost every other show, every other week, or after every other show. Folks, I think the number can stretch to 28-ish, 29-ish, 27-ish in the high school ranks for the 2025 class. So that might mean only 7 more high school prospects. I think Georgia will then take another 3 or 4 folks in the portal. But as of right now, I think Georgia's recruiting class stands at really 19, even though you're going to see 20 names here. No changes on offense since our last show. The 2025 class breakdown has 10 guys on offense. Little note there to share there about Elias Williams. One of the guys when I spoke to Todd Robinson, I asked him, because there's always the running dialogue about Bo Walker and Ethan Barbour about which guy recruits more guys to this class. Todd Robinson's answer was Todd told me that Elias Williams was the guy currently in the Georgia class, the peer commit that really lured him in and maybe made him feel welcome and recruited him the hardest to commit to the G. Let's talk about Ryan Montgomery there just a little bit. Ryan, I don't know if you saw our last week's show, but he has gotten a big boost from 24/7 Sports. He is now the number 10 quarterback in the country and the number 107 overall prospect. I'll share this bullet point about Ryan as I did last week, in case you missed it. That makes him a higher rated quarterback now than Carson Beck was when he signed with Georgia, higher rated than Gunnar Stockton was, higher rated than a whole lot of recent recruits to the University of Georgia, even higher rated than the very talented freshman quarterback Ryan Puglisi as well. That's your class breakdown on offense. Let's take a look on defense. That number swelled to 10 defensive commitments on this side of the ball. I think there, though, if we're being honest with our audience and we're being honest with everyone out there, I don't even know if, Jaden Perlotti, it feels to me like that guy is a guy that will not end up in the class. He has not made a public decision on his commitment status whatsoever there. Isaiah Gibson, 5-star, number 1 edge in the country. Still can't wait to share with you guys my next story about Isaiah Gibson. It will get a lot of folks talking, and it will get a lot of folks kind of ready to run through a brick wall to hold that sort of excitement level about Isaiah Gibson. You heard from Todd Robinson. The latest one on the class breakdown is you've got Jalen Morgan there since our last show, but you've also got the recent guy Rashad Johnson as well on the 2025 class breakdown. If you're looking there, right there. Those are your 10 guys on defense. moving right along to your commitment snapshot. We've got 20 commitments in the class now. Georgia is the number 3 class ranked nationally. 10 on offense, 10 on defense. There are now 12 in-state commitments and 8 out-of-state commitments. 4 of those commitments are outside the beyond the SEC footprint. 16 of those are inside the SEC footprint. Georgia clearly has the most commitments out of any state in our great land of 50 states. There are 2 offensive players among the 5 highest-rated commitments, and there are 4 offensive players among the 10 highest-rated commitments. I know, guys, in some years we always stress that, the offensive side, when will they catch up with the defensive side? I think the way the world works is Georgia's recruiting classes are always going to be defensively heavy. That's because I hear that from so many defensive recruits that say there's something about Georgia, something about having a guy like Kirby Smart as a defensive-minded head coach that just attracts them. They want to play defensive guys. They see the NFL pipelines. They see the NFL development. They want to see guys like that. They want to play for guys like that type of head coach. Georgia added another commitment inside the top 200. We talked about that with Todd Robinson moving up. They now have 12 top 200 commitments. They're the number 3 class nationally in the country as well. Moving right along, let's take a look at our top targets for the 2025 class. And this thing is definitely beginning to show off a 6-pack worth of abs right here. Let's start with Nick Brooks, the big offensive lineman out of Iowa. Spent some time in Georgia. Took an official visit to Athens. I feel Georgia is in his final group. Number 7 is a guy that makes his decision on July the 20th. So here's a preview, guys. This list is going to shrink even more. Christian Gass will probably either be a Georgia Bulldog or a Tennessee Volunteer after he makes his decision on Saturday. I'm told there will not be a formal ceremony there for Christian Gass. Out of Eastside High School, Damola Idejanan, Duluth, Georgia, Duluth High School. That was the high school made famous by George Rogers. Damola is definitely a guy Georgia has prioritized as an offensive tackle in this class. If you're catching a running theme, it looks like some of the majority work, if Georgia work left, if we do our math, can take maybe 9 more commitments. Might see 4 or 5 of those. Might see at least 3 or 4 of those, guys off the offensive line. Cortez Smith is there at number 5 out of Parkview High School. If you're just joining the program right now, he was our kind of anchor piece. He led off the Big 5 today, the 4-star offensive lineman target. Most likely a center is his future on Saturdays, but he was one of our 2 big DawgNation conversations for tonight's show that came up during our Big 5 segment of the show. Next slide, you're going to know the names. Juan Gaston Jr., he makes his decision on August the 2nd. David Sanders Jr. makes his decision on August the 17th. And then the two names that will probably be here longer than the rest of the names on that board. Elijah Griffin, he's going to make his decision sometime in December. Might be a little early. I think Justice Terry's decision will come a lot earlier than a lot of what the folks in the recruiting sphere and the recruiting industry seem to think. Those are your top targets for 2025. It's shrinking, my friends, shrinking down. Who else could be off the list? Who's just off the list that we're going to keep on our radar there that could potentially also see themselves in the class of 2025 in Athens? Mentioned him earlier, Bryce Davis. I believe that decision comes down to Georgia or Clemson there. He's also got Duke and South Carolina as his finalists. Jonte Gilbert, that's another guy who it seems he's always been hot and cold with Georgia guys. He's actually making his decision on August the 10th out of Douglas High School in Atlanta. I believe he is one of those Astro defenders. Ben Hanks is another guy that Georgia has been kicking the tires on and talking to, a defensive back, a versatile defensive back out of South Florida. His father is actually a former Florida Gator, I believe. Ty Jackson, another linebacker, the number 1 linebacker in the country, I believe, for On3.com. That's another guy just off the list. Few more names to share with you, and these things are getting spaced out. Usmani Kroma, Big Oos out of Lee County. I think Georgia is in his top 2. It's Auburn and Georgia. Always interesting, and one of those guys that has been back and forth a lot in terms of hot and cold and how much Georgia is on him. C.J. Wiley still committed to Florida State. Milton High School standout. I think Georgia's going to continue to recruit him, but certainly seems to me, things I've heard just kind of watching CJ on social media, he seems quite content with being a Florida State Seminole right now. I don't know if we would put him in the KJ Bolden-ish flip target territory right there. Next name, Anthony Rogers, a running back committed to Bama right now out of Montgomery, Alabama. They call him Turbo. He's really, really fast. I believe Georgia will get an official visit from Anthony Turbo Rogers during the season. He's currently committed to Bama. I know how much the weekly Before the Hedges viewer likes to hear about Georgia and Alabama getting in the ring for some mano-a-mano for a recruit there. And then a new name that's popped up, Caleb Williams, currently a South Carolina commit. Kind of in the same area. He will play Shamari Earls up in Chester, Virginia as well, Thomas Dale High School. Those two teams will play each other this year. Guys, that is just off the list for Before the Hedges this week. All right, guys, we went from A to Z here this week. We've been some SEC Media Days talk. There's been some commitment ceremony review talk. We talked about the new college football game out by EA Sports. We had 2 DawgNation conversations, and we talked about potentially how big Saturday is going to be for Georgia football recruiting in the class of 2020-25. Guys, that's been your intel. I'm Jeff Sentell. Thanks for joining us here for another episode, another Wednesday night edition of Before the Hedges. And we'll see you guys again later. We'll see you guys again later. Let me try that again and try to stick the landing. We'll see you guys again later on the pages of DawgNation.com.
The way they handle business, education is important, trying to reach the next level. I want the best in life, I never settle. I'm a bulldog, so Georgia who won't pick it. I love the family atmosphere.